Welcome back to the deep dive. We're continuing our series on Revenue Reinvented, the future of quote and order management. Today, we're doing a really critical deep dive. We're looking at a huge strategic shift it's reshaping commercial leadership everywhere. It's this move away from the old transactional sales model towards something we're calling the perpetual revenue engine. Now, for commercial executives listening, CROs, heads of sales, the landscape, it's fundamentally changed, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The whole everything is a service idea, SaaS, and just the basic economics of subscriptions,
Yeah.
they've made the traditional sales pipeline kind of obsolete.
That old linear pipeline, right? Built for a world where you closed a deal one time and moved on.
Exactly. Success used to be about volume. How many deals did you close?
But now,
Now it's different. Modern commercial success isn't just about volume. It's about efficiency, predictability, and maybe most importantly, the longevity of the value you continuously deliver to your customer.
okay, let's unpack this then. Subscriptions, recurring value. That's the driver. So what exactly makes the old pipeline model, fail so badly now? Why can't we just, stick a renewal team on the end of the old process?
Yeah, good question. Because the problem isn't just about adding a step, like you said. It's systemic. We actually call it the transactional trap.
Transactional
Yeah,
trap.
the linear model.
Mm-hmm.
It prioritizes that single event, the sale closure, above everything else. So when you incentivize your sales teams purely on, say, high total contract value, TCV, and just volume,
You're rewarding short-term thinking.
precisely, that immediate commission check, it just outweighs the long-term health of that customer relationship. And focusing only on closure creates, massive friction inside the organization. Think about it. Sales gets the contract right. Big celebration, win declared,
Mm-hmm.
and then they toss the baton over to operations, maybe customer success. But those handoffs, they weren't designed for continuous flow. They were designed around that sequential closure idea.
And that's where things break down.
That's the primary source of revenue leakage. And honestly, customer dissatisfaction too. Sales teams, incentivized that way, they often sell deals. Maybe custom configurations, really aggressive timelines, integrations that haven't even been properly checked.
Things that operations can't actually deliver profitably, or maybe the customer just isn't ready for it technically.
Exactly. That's the core friction, isn't it? It's a misalignment of the financial incentives. Sales basically gets paid to create a problem.
That operations discovers later. Ouch!
Yeah, so you end up spending a lot on customer acquisition cost, your CAC. For a customer who's probably going to churn pretty quickly anyway, it's a systemic failure.
Yeah.
But the linear pipeline, it completely hides this. The win gets logged up front. The rep gets paid. The quarter looks good on paper.
But finance only sees the real failure. The churn, the downsell.
Yeah.
Maybe 6, 9, 12 months down the road.
Right, and that gap in time. The difference between the initial promise in the quote and the proof, which is fulfillment and actual usage,
Mm-hmm.
it makes finding the root cause really, really hard.
And expensive. You can't fix that misalignment if you can't even trace the failure back to the source, back to that specific configuration or pricing decision made way back at the start.
Exactly. You can't fix what you can't see clearly.
So, okay, we need to ditch that linear thinking. The old pipeline is out. We need a systems approach, something rooted in continuous value, maximizing the relationship. And that's our mission today, right? To dive deep into architecting this perpetual revenue engine. And the framework for that is the quote to renewal cycle, or Q2R, built entirely around the relationship, not just the one-off transaction. Okay, let's dig into the why now. The strategic imperative driving this whole transformation. Because this isn't just about tweaking operations, is it? It feels like a fundamental financial mandate from the subscription economy itself.
Oh, absolutely. It is a financial mandate. Moving to Xantz, it forces a really profound financial restructuring. In the old world, maybe the product was the main asset. In this new world, the relationship itself becomes the central financial asset. Sustainable growth. It depends entirely on maximizing customer lifetime value, CLV. And just as critically, minimizing churn.
Because that relationship is what generates the predictable recurring revenue, which is what investors really value now.
Exactly. Predictability is king. But this shift, it introduces some serious financial complexity, especially when companies are moving from traditional licenses over to subscriptions.
Okay, like what kind of complexity?
Well, one immediate risk is an initial dip in profitability. Because of revenue recognition rules, things like ASC 606 or IFRS 15, you have to spread the revenue and the costs out over the whole contract term.
Ah, so you don't get that big chunk of cash up front like you used to.
Right. which can make those first few years of the transition feel pretty vulnerable financially. Cash flow becomes a much bigger focus.
Okay, so if profitability might dip, how does leadership actually manage that risk? That sounds tricky.
It requires a really crucial partnership, right at the executive level, between finance and sales, specifically the CFO and the CRO. They absolutely have to align on booking quotas and the metrics they use. Meaning it's just not acceptable anymore for sales to hit some big TCV number if the company can't actually afford to service that deal profitably long term. ACV, TCV targets. They have to reflect actual long-term profitability. They need to support the company's cash flow, not just look good on a sales report.
So preventing that pursuit of vanity volume, deals that look impressive but actually bleed margin.
Precisely. That executive alignment. It's the survival mechanism during the transition.
Okay, so that's the top-level financial piece. But to manage this continuity day-to-day, operationally, that's where the revenue value stream, or RVS, comes in?
Exactly. And this isn't some brand new concept we just invented. It's really an application of value stream management, VSM. Comes straight out of lean manufacturing. Think the Toyota production system.
Right. VSM in manufacturing maps every single step, from raw material to finished product. The goal is always shortening the cycle time, improving quality.
And the commercial parallel is exactly the same. The RVS measures the speed, the efficiency with which a customer's request, that initial quote, gets converted into realized value, the actual fulfillment, and then leads to retention, the renewal.
So RVS is kind of the antidote to those organizational silos we were talking about.
Yes. It gives you a structured, quantitative way to get the whole enterprise moving together, to be more agile, to adapt faster. And it does that by relentlessly hunting down and eliminating what we call commercial waste.
Commercial waste. Okay, so when it's not physical stuff like inventory piling up, what does that look like in a commercial context?
It's the cost of delay. It's rework. It's misalignment. Think about all those non-value-add activities, like manual quoting errors that force operations to completely rebuild an order, or slow, error-prone handoffs between sales, legal, maybe provisioning, or just inefficient order provisioning that delays the customer actually getting to use the service they bought. That's a huge one.
Time to first use.
Exactly. Anything that slows down that flow of value creation is commercial waste. And the central metric for RVS is reducing the time to value, TTV, for the customer, getting them value faster.
Bringing that manufacturing discipline into the sales and service world. And we've seen this work outside of making physical products, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are great examples. Think about, say, a mid-sized law firm. They were feeling pressure on billable hours. Client retention was slipping.
Okay.
They mapped their RVS from the first client call all the way to closing the case. And they found something like 20% of their case handling time was just wasted. Redundant data entry across different systems. Too many review cycles between practice groups.
Commercial waste hiding as process.
Exactly. By streamlining that workflow using VSM principles, they actually managed to reverse a 15% drop in client retention. Because they could deliver faster, more transparently, which is what clients wanted.
Interesting.
Or a big retail chain. They used VSM not just for their supply chain, but for their internal commercial operations. They found their old inventory system and sort of decentralized purchasing was adding maybe 20% unnecessary operational cost. By focusing the RVS on that internal buying process, they streamlined it, cut costs, restored margins. It just proves VSM works for any business flow. It's about finding those non-value-add steps that kill profitability and frustrate customers, whether you're making cars or selling software subscriptions.
Okay, so if RVS is the operational framework, the big picture, then the actual mechanism, the perpetual cycle we're running, is this quote-to-renewal Q2R cycle.
That's the functional architecture, yes. And it's really important to stress. The traditional quote-to-cash Q2C is just not enough in this subscription world.
Why not? Because it stops too soon.
Exactly. It stops at payment collection. It implicitly treats the customer relationship as finite, like something you use up once you get the cash. Q2R explicitly says, no, cash collection is just an intermediate step. It's part of a continuous loop of value exchange that has to end in expansion and renewal.
Got it. So let's dive into the architecture of Q2R itself. Pillar by pillar, where does it all start? Quote, this has to be it, the promise. It's the critical starting point, the absolute inception of the whole value stream. It's the legal promise, the commercial promise you make.
And it requires sales to have really comprehensive, totally up-to-date customer info, product rules, Everything needed to create an accurate offer.
And the non-negotiable part here
Yeah.
is that the quote can't just be about maximizing TCV anymore. It absolutely has to ensure that whatever is promised is actually deliverable and profitable.
That's the key. If that initial promise is flawed, if you quote something you can't deliver well or that tanks your margins, the whole value stream is basically poisoned from the start. Churn is almost guaranteed.
Okay, so the quote is the promise. What's next?
Next is Pillar 2, order and contract. This is the agreement. It's how you formalize that promise. And with ZaaS's, contracts aren't static documents anymore, are they?
No, they're incredibly complex. Subscriptions, usage terms, maybe multi-year schedules with built-in ramps.
Exactly. The complexity here can be massive. You might have pricing tiers that change automatically based on how much the customer uses. Or maybe they can turn on add-on services themselves mid-cycle.
So what are the best practices here?
You absolutely need standardized contract templates, deep integration between sales, legal, finance terms. Using tools like e-signature platforms is critical to speed things up. This phase has to feel frictionless, matching the ease of the quote, but it also needs to be super robust to handle how dynamic modern deals are.
Okay, promise, agreement. Now comes the reality check. Pillar 3. Fulfillment, the proof. This is where the rubber meets the road, right? If the promise was accurate, this is where it becomes real.
This is operational delivery. You need sophisticated order management systems, ideally automated, that check prerequisites, allocate resources. Successful fulfillment means, well, it means accuracy, first off.
Delivering what was actually ordered.
Right. And critically, minimizing the customer's time to first use.
Yeah.
If someone signs a contract and then waits weeks just to get activated or onboarded, they immediately start questioning that initial promise.
Yeah, buyers remorse sets in fast.
Successful fulfillment is the absolute foundation. It proves the relationship started based on reality, not just, sales hype.
Okay, quote, order fulfillment brings us to the end, or maybe the continuation.
Exactly. Pillar 4, renewal and expansion. This is the value realization. It's the culmination, but also the restart of the cycle. This pillar is all about leveraging the continuous data you gather throughout the contract, usage data, satisfaction signals.
All that feedback you get in a subscription model.
Right. That steady stream lets you drive retention much more proactively. You can spot precise upsell or cross-sell opportunities based on actual usage, not guesswork. And you can feed insights back into product development much faster. This pillar makes sure cash collection isn't the end, it's just a milestone before the next phase of value.
And going back to that idea of commercial waste, you mentioned the most expensive kind is systemic misalignment.
Yes, the cost associated with selling deals that operations or CS simply cannot support profitably. The financial hit there is huge. Rework, emergency fixes, accelerated churn. It all adds up.
So if that cost is so high, this Q2R framework, it has to be more than just an operational checklist on someone's desk.
Absolutely, it has to be elevated.
Yeah.
Think of the RVS, powered by Q2R, as a board-level governance model. Seriously.
Business model.
Yeah. The mandate here is ensuring enterprise agility, competitiveness. And it does that by actively mapping, and this is the crucial bit, structurally penalizing the operational costs that get generated by those missold or poorly configured deals.
Penalizing. How does that work without just creating blame?
It's not necessarily about punishing individuals. It's about ensuring the cost of fixing an error lands financially back on the department where the error originated often, back at the, quote, stage. It creates a structural disincentive for misalignment. It forces strategic decisions to be filtered through the lens of, can we deliver this profitably and efficiently? It forces everyone to think about optimizing that RVS time to value.
Wow. Okay, so this shift from the linear pipeline to this perpetual engine, it obviously requires a huge reinvention of commercial leadership itself. We're talking about the chief revenue officer, the CRO. They can't just be a, quote, glorified VP of sales anymore. They have to become the dedicated orchestrator, maybe the value architect of this whole revenue system.
That value architect analogy is spot on. The modern CRO owns revenue across the entire go-to-market function. That means sales, yes, but also marketing, customer success, maybe partnerships too.
So the responsibility isn't just acquisition anymore.
No way. They own the whole life cycle. Acquisition, retention, and expansion. Ultimate accountability sits with them. Their main job is strategic integration, knitting together departments that used to operate in silos, making them one smooth, synchronized operation. Especially when your GTM gets complex, multi-channel, multi-product, global, you need that single orchestrator.
To ensure everyone's aligned, pulling in the same direction, driving predictable growth.
Exactly. It's that optimization driven by data, driven by strategy, that really defines the modern CRO role.
It really mirrors what we saw happen with the CFO role, doesn't it? Moving from just scorekeeping on past results to being an architect who integrates long-term thinking, sustainability, innovation into the financial plans. The CRO needs to do the same for the growth systems.
Absolutely.
But hang on, this immediately brings up a massive challenge one I hear about all the time. It's this dual operating rhythm. Wait, so you're saying the CRO has to be both a sprinter and a marathon runner at the same time? How does anyone actually do that?
Huh. It is the defining challenge of the role, honestly. They are constantly balancing that intense pressure for immediate results, hit the quarterly targets, that's the sprinter part, with the absolute necessity of building these scalable, resilient systems for the long haul, is the marathon runner.
And if they only focus on one?
Disaster. Focus only on the quarter, you burn out the engine, neglect the future. Focus only on long-term architecture, you miss your immediate targets, and frankly, you probably won't be CRO for long.
So how do the best leaders manage it?
Sophisticated leadership, they strategically segment the work streams. They have to. You allocate dedicated resources, actual people, actual budget, to both running the current engine, hitting those immediate Q2R targets, and building the future engine, developing those long-term operational systems, the RVS improvements. You can't starve one for the other.
That orchestration piece sounds critical for just basic business resilience, too. Internal friction, misalignment. That's a huge source of disruption and wasted effort.
It absolutely is. Think about it like a financial investment strategy, maybe bond laddering.
Okay. How so?
Well, with bond laddering, you blend short-term bonds for liquidity with long-term ones for yield and stability. You manage risk, ensure predictable cash flow. The CRO's orchestration does something similar for revenue. By balancing immediate execution with long-term system building, they mitigate that internal friction, that volatility, and they deliver more predictable future cash flow for the business.
Okay, that makes sense. And the engine, the actual structural foundation that makes this orchestration possible, that's revenue operations or RevOps.
Yes, RevOps is the central nervous system. It's the hub that standardizes the data, centralizes the technology stack, enforces the process standards. It aligns all those GTM functions, sales, marketing, CS, into one cohesive, efficient system.
And the data seems to back this up. Companies with mature RevOps.
They achieve predictable revenue growth significantly faster. It's quite clear, which means, really, RevOps maturity is a non-negotiable prerequisite for a CRO to actually succeed.
Interesting point. So hiring a CRO before you have that solid RevOps foundation?
It often leads to failure. The CRO gets bogged down, fixing fundamental process flaws, fighting data fires. Instead of doing the high-level orchestration they are hired for, they underperform, they get frustrated, they leave. Seen it happen many times.
We should probably clarify what RevOps maturity really means. It's definitely more than just having someone who knows how to administer your CRM.
Oh, for sure. We can think about it in stages. Stage one is ad hoc. Data's everywhere, trapped in silos. Tools or fragmented spreadsheets, email, maybe a basic CRM nobody uses consistently. Predictability is basically zero. Handoff friction is terrible.
Sounds familiar for some places.
Then you move to emerging. Maybe you've got a CRM, some marketing automation, but processes are still pretty manual, inconsistent across teams. The focus is still very tactical, just keeping the lights on.
Okay, getting better.
Stage 3 is operational. Now you're integrating key systems, maybe ERP and CRM talk to each other. Processes are documented, they're enforced. You've got consistency. But the focus is still mainly on efficiency, maybe cost reduction, not yet driving top-line strategy.
And the final stage.
That's strategic. This is where revenue actually feels predictable. RevOps isn't just supporting strategy anymore. It's actively driving it. You've adopted advanced platforms like a really well-integrated CPQ system. You're using predictive analytics. Your time to value is minimized. Your RVS is scalable, resilient. That's the goal.
And critically, RevOps, especially at that strategic stage, it serves that crucial role we talked about earlier. It's the enforcer of the, quote, the promise. It defines the governance for how these cross-functional workflows actually operate.
Exactly right. RevOps has to enforce strict rules for the core technology platform, especially configure, price, quote, or CPQ. They become the financial compliance gateway. They ensure sales cannot generate a quote that operations or fulfillment or finance can't actually support profitably. This elevates RevOps way beyond administration. They become a strategic function, protecting margins and making sure commercial promises are actually viable.
Okay, that takes us right into the technology needed to make this systemic transformation happen. The systems that physically connect the promise that, quote, to the proof of fulfillment.
And configure, price, quote, technology CPQ, it's just non-negotiable. It's the absolute cornerstone for any organization running a modern revenue value stream, especially if you're in complex industries like ZOS, manufacturing, high tech, anywhere configurations or pricing get tricky.
How does it streamline things?
Fundamentally, it automates huge chunks of the sales process. Product selection, complex pricing logic, generating the actual, quote, document. It uses built-in rules, maybe guided selling questions.
To make sure only valid combinations are even possible.
Exactly. It eliminates those configuration errors right at the source, which prevents incredibly costly rework later in fulfillment. And it just makes the whole deal cycle faster. Honestly, without CPQ in complex environments, you are guaranteed to have fulfillment nightmares that trace right back to a faulty promise made in the quote.
Okay, now, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. How does CPQ handle the crazy complexity we're seeing now in SaaS pricing? We're talking outcome-based deals, usage tiers, billed by the minute, super customized bundles.
Yeah, CPQ systems are truly indispensable for handling that level of complexity. They have to automate really sophisticated, multi-layered pricing calculations, manage volume discounts that might span different product lines, handle real-time currency conversions for global deals.
And outcome-based pricing, where you pay based on value achieved.
CPQ is critical there. It has to ensure compliance with all that dynamic logic. It acts like the central brain, applying the right rule at the right moment. It allows the organization to tailor pricing dynamically, which is huge for winning deals and keeping customers loyal.
And the next step seems to be injecting AI machine learning directly into that CPQ process.
It is. We're seeing more and more of it. This integration enables truly dynamic pricing. We're moving beyond static price lists and simple discount bands.
How does the AI help?
Well, AI can analyze massive amounts of data, historical sales, competitor pricing, current market signals to generate optimized, even personalized, pricing recommendations for specific opportunities. This can dramatically increase win rates and protect margins.
Plus, it takes some burden off the seller.
Yeah, AI-assisted selling reduces that admin load. Reps can focus more on strategic conversations, understanding the customer's business value, instead of just clicking through SKU configurations.
Okay, but there has to be a catch. What's the big warning label here?
The warning label is huge, and it's flashing bright red. Data quality. The effectiveness of any AI, especially in pricing, hinges entirely, absolutely, on the quality of the underlying data and the scalability of the platforms feeding it.
Garbage in, garbage out, but
Right.
amplified.
Massively amplified. Poor data quality in your RVS doesn't just cause small errors with AI. It leads to potentially catastrophic pricing decisions. It completely undermines your entire revenue strategy.
So the takeaway is,
Investment in data quality, data governance, and scalable integrated platforms. That has to come before, or at the very least in parallel with deploying these fancy front-end AI tools. You can't build an AI house on a foundation of bad data.
and let's just quickly reiterate that other key CPQ function, the financial compliance gateway.
Right. By ensuring accurate configurations and consistent pricing logic are applied every time, CPQ protects the company's financial integrity. It enforces those revenue recognition standards like ASC 606, IFRS 15. It's how the CFO sleeps at night, knowing that the revenue and cost for every single subscription are being recognized correctly over the contract term. It mitigates audit risk significantly.
So that tech framework locks down the promise. Now let's revisit Fulfillment Pillar 3 as the moment of operational proof.
Yes, fulfillment is absolutely pivotal. It's the moment of truth. And its efficiency, its accuracy, it dictates so much of your future success with that customer.
Accurate order processing, timely provisioning, keeping the customer informed, that's the bedrock for keeping them and growing them.
It is. And fulfillment issues. They are, frankly, damning evidence of a faulty Q2R process upstream. A customer who's frustrated because they can't use what they just bought. They're immediately hostile to any future expansion conversations. You kill those high CLV opportunities before they even get started.
Which means you need a unified tech flow, right? No more manual handoffs between systems. CPQ needs to talk seamlessly to contract management, which needs to talk seamlessly to order management or provisioning.
Absolutely critical. If your sales team is still copying and pasting, quote, details into a separate order system, you're losing efficiency, you're introducing errors, you're slowing everything down. It has to be integrated.
And part of that unified flow, especially in subscriptions, is something called asset-based ordering, or ABO.
Yes, ABO is crucial in the subscription world. What it does is give you a complete, accurate, real-time view of everything the customer currently owns or subscribes to their entire asset footprint.
Why is that so important?
Well, having that comprehensive standardized view, is essential for smooth renewals. For one thing, it ensures accurate billing adjustments. And, critically, it helps you pinpoint very specific expansion opportunities.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say a customer got 3 software licenses last year. When it's time for renewal, an ABO system ensures the renewal, quote, automatically references those 3 existing assets. It makes it impossible for a rep to accidentally quote them for 3 more new licenses on top of the old ones.
Preventing errors and confusion.
Exactly. Instead, the system quotes them accurately for renewing the original 3, and maybe prompts the rep to discuss adding 2 more, automatically applying the correct tiered discount for a total of 5. This standardization makes billing way more efficient, stops revenue leakage from incorrect renewals, and makes sure the whole renewal conversation starts from a place of trust and accuracy.
Okay, we've engineered the engine. We have the framework, the leadership model, the tech. Now, how do we sustain the value? How do we ensure this engine runs perpetually using data, metrics, and, importantly, culture?
Right, sustaining it. The big shift here has to be moving away from purely subjective renewal assessment. You know, that annual check-in call where you cross your fingers and hope they'll stay?
Yeah, the hope strategy.
Yeah, exactly. We need to move towards objective, real-time health scores. The data you generate during fulfillment and ongoing usage, that provides the empirical evidence you need to actually predict future behavior.
So leveraging things like product usage logs, support tickets, activation rates.
All of it, even sentiment analysis from call recordings or emails. You need to gather all those signals that confirm whether the customer is truly realizing the value you promised them, way back in the quote.
And this continuous feedback loop, which is kind of inherent in subscription models, it just generates this constant stream of valuable data.
Invaluable data. It's what lets you do faster, more targeted product improvements based on how people are really using the service. It makes your forecasting way more accurate. The key, though, is ensuring all those feedback channels, surveys, usage data, support interactions, all sync back into your core CRM or customer platform. You need that holistic view, combining their experience data with their purchase history.
Okay, so if we have all this data, what's the ultimate measure? The North Star metric for RVS success?
I think, without a doubt, it has to be net revenue retention, or NRR.
NR, why that one specifically?
Because NRR captures everything. It measures retention, are customers staying, but it also measures upsell and cross-sell effectiveness, are they growing in value. Hitting a high NRR consistently above 100% is the ultimate validation that your Q2R value stream is working efficiently and profitably. It proves the customers you acquire aren't just sticking around, they're becoming more valuable over time.
And that brings us right back to pillar 3 again, doesn't it? Fulfillment. As the primary NRR accelerator, we tend to focus so much on the initial sale or the renewal conversation itself.
But the retention work, the NRR work, it really starts the moment that order is placed. Remember, churn is fundamentally caused by a failure to realize the promised value. Therefore, optimizing that fulfillment pillar, getting customers to value quickly and successfully, that offers the fastest, most reliable path to improving NRR.
So lagging indicators in fulfillment become leading indicators for NRR problems.
Absolutely. If your fulfillment lead time, the time from signing the deal to the customer actually getting the service, is high, or if your activation rate, that time to first use, is low, the customer health score takes an immediate hit, and your NRR forecast starts looking pretty grim. You simply cannot upsell a customer who hasn't even been successfully onboarded or isn't actively using what they already bought. Fulfillment is the operational bedrock for long-term financial success.
Okay, so we need great fulfillment. But to truly sustain this whole perpetual cycle, we have to tackle the biggest source of behavioral friction, don't we? Which is incentive alignment.
Yes, this is huge.
We have to shift compensation away from models that only reward closing the deal, because that just incentivizes transactional behavior, maybe bringing in those high-churn customers we talked about earlier.
Compensation has to be fundamentally reinvented. It needs to reward the creation of predictable, sustainable, profitable revenue streams, not just any revenue.
So what's the most direct way to do that? How do you structurally connect sales incentives to customer success outcomes?
Well, the most direct mechanism, though it can be controversial, is tying a percentage of the sales rep's target incentive directly to post-sale customer satisfaction metrics.
Yeah.
Things like the customer health score, maybe measured 6 or even 12 months after the initial sale.
Okay, that sounds powerful in theory, but how hard is that to actually implement? If a sales rep sees their commission clawed back or reduced because a customer churned months later, isn't that just going to create resentment and pushback?
It absolutely can, unless RevOps steps up again. This kind of granular, delayed incentive alignment requires incredibly high reliability and consistency in that satisfaction data, the health score data.
Ah, the data has to be bulletproof.
Bulletproof and trusted. If the data feels buggy or arbitrary or incomplete, the sales team will, rightly, fight the compensation structure tooth and nail. RevOps absolutely must solve this fundamental data reliability problem first. Only then can you make these granular incentive alignments viable and fair. Without reliable, indisputable data, leadership gets forced back into using broader, less impactful metrics, which just dilutes the behavioral change you're trying to drive on the front line.
Got it. Data quality underpins incentives, too. And finally, all of this requires the right culture to make it stick.
Absolutely. Leading this shift to continuous revenue, it demands what some call catalyst leadership. Leaders who embrace continuous improvement, who embody that respect for people principle from lean thinking. Meaning you have to involve your frontline employees, the people actually doing the quoting, the fulfilling, the supporting, in diagnosing the root causes of problems. Whether it's quality issues or efficiency bottlenecks. You can't just impose solutions from the top down. Those often miss the real source of the friction. You have to trust the people closest to the work to help fix the system.
And to formalize that continuous improvement, that cross-functional learning, we need something like the revenue retrospective.
Yes, this needs to be a structured, regular, cross-functional ritual, not just another meeting.
What happens in a revenue retrospective?
It's not a status update. It's a goal-oriented session. You bring together sales, CS, operations, maybe product, and the entire goal is comparison. You compare the initial promise, what was, in the quote, the configuration, the price, against the operational SWOR. Proof, how efficient was fulfillment? What was the time to use? Against the final value in use. Did they renew? Did they expand? What does their usage look like?
Closing the loop.
Exactly. This regular, ritualized accountability closes that strategic feedback loop. It forces courageous conversations. It exposes those systemic failure points, maybe consistently missold deals from one team, or bottlenecks in a specific fulfillment process. It drives continuous organizational learning for the sake of getting better.
Okay, let's try and bring this all together. So what does this all mean for you, the commercial leader listening, who's focused on revenue reinvented?
Well, this shift to the quote to renewal, the Q2R cycle, it really feels like a strategic mandate now. It's not optional. It redefines the CRO as the orchestrator of the entire GTM function. It establishes RevOps as the critical engine for structural alignment, and it positions CPQ technology as that essential gateway for financial compliance and operational accuracy. Ultimately, success hinges on a massive cultural shift and, crucially, incentive alignment that genuinely rewards continuous value delivery over just hitting transactional volume targets. We have to ensure that acquiring a customer is inherently structurally linked to that customer's long-term profitability and their realization of value. And maybe we could leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on. It's about an organizational dichotomy, a tension really, that's required for perpetual growth. We call it the paradox of control and trust.
Control and trust. Tell me more.
Think about it. Your RevOps function, the systems like CPQ, they establish necessary high control, standardizing data, enforcing rules, structuring processes. You need this control for efficiency, for predictability, to prevent that costly misalignment we discussed.
Right, the guardrails.
Exactly. But lean philosophy, continuous improvement, innovation, these all require high trust. You have to trust and empower your frontline teams, the ones closest to the customer in the process, to openly diagnose system failures, to suggest improvements without fear of blame.
So you need rigid standards, but also the flexibility to challenge and improve those standards.
Precisely. The ultimate measure of commercial leadership in this new era might just be the ability to skillfully balance these two. Can you enforce rigorous standards for consistency and compliance, control, while simultaneously empowering your people to identify flaws and improve the system? Trust.
Because if you lose that balance...
If you lose the balance, your highly controlled engine risks becoming rigid, bureaucratic, slow to adapt. It becomes resistant to the very continuous change that's necessary to dominate in this fast-moving ZOS economy.
So the challenge for everyone listening is to look at their own organization.
And ask, which side of this paradox do we currently lean towards? Are we over-controlled and stifling improvement? Or are we too loose, lacking the discipline needed for predictable execution? Solving that balance. That might just be the next frontier in building a truly perpetual revenue engine.